All right, Logan, are you with us? I see you. I'm going to assume that he is, and I will go ahead and get this meeting started. Welcome everybody to our meeting of the Commission on Equitable Housing and Development. It looks like we have a quorum, and we have started recording. So I would like to call this meeting to order. The Commission on Equitable Housing and Development meeting has now commenced. It is December 4th at 4:05 p.m. This is a virtual meeting. We ask that you mute yourselves until called upon to speak to avoid feedback and background noise. For those who have dialed in using the call-in number, to unmute to speak, dial *6 on your phone and only use the chat function to request to speak. Also, to comply with the state open meeting law, attendance and votes will be done by way of roll call using audio. And with that, I'm going to call the roll. Maggie Amato Tellez. I do not believe she is here. Mindy Bernstein.
She'll be coming in momentarily.
Okay. Vicky Cusino. I did not see her. Is Vicky here? No. Logan Havens.
Here.
Serena Warake. Lori Mazurba.
Present.
Ann Miskey.
Present.
Robert Ojeda is absent. Tisha Tallman is absent. Alan Solat.
Present.
Jim Toffel.
I'm here, thanks.
Ray Winch.
Present.
Kenny Wong.
I'm here.
All right, we do indeed have a quorum, and ex officio members and Janeka. Corin
Ann was
Manning.
unable to make it today.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Corin Manning. I didn't see Corin either.
Yeah, I don't think Corin's going to be able to make it.
All righty. Marcos Ismail.
Here.
And Michael Edmonds.
Present.
All right. Oh, and Jay Young, that's me. I'm here. Okay. Did folks have a chance to look over the November meeting minutes? Were there any corrections, additions, comments, etc.? If not, I would take a motion to approve the November meeting minutes.
Move to approve the November meeting minutes.
So moved by Alan. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Logan. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? All right, the November meeting minutes are approved. So just a quick review of the agenda today. We're going to do our call to the audience next. We're going to have a presentation and discussion about an emergency housing declaration. Then we will have the Pima County Regional Housing Strategy and Funding Plan presentation and discussion, followed by city and county updates. That will take just a few minutes to revisit and discuss our 2026 work plan. Next, we will review our schedule for 2026, and then another brief discussion on the recommendations to mayor and council, just to see if there are any final comments or updates. We do basically have a final draft. So
Jay, I'm sorry, before you continue, there's a question, a hand up from Sue. Or you want to allow that to happen now or later?
yeah, we'll take it now.
Okay. Sue, I think you can talk.
Sue, are you there?
Sue? Okay, her hand is down.
Okay. Then we'll do next steps and adjournment. So that's what we're up to today. And with that, let's see. I will do the call to the audience. The call to the audience is limited to 3 minutes per speaker and a total of 10 minutes. All speakers must share their name to be recorded in the meeting minutes. And please remember that the call to the audience may not result in discussion with members of CEHD. No legal action may take place during the call to the audience, and speakers may not be disruptive. CEHD members may only respond to criticism and request that items be placed on a future agenda for discussion. Members of the audience may still participate on agenda items as per the bylaws of CEHD. And with that, is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak?
No hands are up.
Anybody in the audience, would you like to speak? Now is your time. All
Okay.
right. So hearing none at this point, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the Emergency Housing Declaration overview. Who is with us today to speak to us about that?
Hi, Jay, and Commission, Dan Bursick, Planning Administrator, Planning and Development Services. I'll provide a brief update on kind of where we're at for this.
Go ahead, take it away.
Excellent, thank you. So yeah, no, thanks everyone for having us here to provide an update on the Housing and Homelessness Emergency Declaration. So if you were aware, on October 21st, Mayor and Council held a study session to look at a potential housing and homelessness emergency declaration. Staff came to Mayor and Council, presented on some kind of data of where we're at and the need, as well as kind of potential barriers, at least zoning barriers to shelter care and the shelter care use within our zoning code. And so at that meeting, we had a list of kind of different things that really we see as barriers to just available sites to locate shelter care uses. Those were things such as requirements for minimum lot size, requirements for number of residents, parking requirements, setbacks from residential, setbacks from other shelter or other kind of shelter uses, and what is it? It's the lot coverage, especially for adaptive reuse, things such as like the Wildcat Inn. And so we presented to Mayor and Council at that meeting to get some direction on how to move forward. They had told us to come back to them in 45 days with a emergency declaration, including short-term and long-term actions to expand temporary shelter capacity and to accelerate permanent affordable housing options as well. And so then the other thing they also did was they said, bring this declaration forward and then also get started on permanent code changes as well to address this over time. And so over the last 45 days, we've been working with the city attorney's office on setting up a resolution for a declaration. We will be going to Mayor and Council on December 16th for a study session. At that study session, we will present options to Mayor and Council. All those materials will be posted next Tuesday. And basically what it will provide is, and this is based off feedback from Mayor and Council and in consultation with the city attorney's office, it'll be a resolution that'll be on the regular menu or regular agenda to where it'll provide the option for flexibility for all of those 5 criteria that I talked about. So it would be flexibility for parking, setbacks from residential, setbacks from other shelter care uses, lot coverage, residents, and minimum lot size. And so the way that at least it's structured as of now is that they did want some sort of public process and notification process. Currently, there is a requirement for a zoning examiner special exception. And what this would do would provide complete flexibility for that, but you would have to go through the zoning examiner special exception process. And so that will be presented to Mayor and Council on the 21st. There are a couple other items related to this. One is related to the timeline. If you've seen any of these in other municipalities, other cities like LA, Portland, a lot of them have a timeline to come back and take a look at it. Portland had, I think they had to come back every year and re-up it. They've been doing that for over 10 years. LA had one that was more a shorter time period. What we're looking at with this is a 6-month review period, at which mayor and council will have an option to extend that for another 6 months, and then we would review again in another 6 months. This would be done via monitoring both of number of beds available, as well as need for that, to try to kind of monitor how we're doing related to this as we move forward. The other portion of this as well is related to a permanent code change, and so providing us direction to go and really address the shelter care use. It wouldn't be so I think part of the issue that we have in our zoning code, and this is pretty similar to I think a lot of other communities, is that our shelter care use and the definition of shelter care use is kind of antiquated and doesn't really reflect current practices. And so over the next 6 months to a year, we would work on a permanent code change to really transition us out of that emergency declaration related to this. One of the things we did when we were kind of trying to understand whether or not this should be housing and whether this should actually address permanent housing as well. We do believe we've made pretty significant strides as far as zoning reform related to permanent housing with the community corridors tool. We have the middle housing amendments that are also going on the 16th to mayor and council for adoption, as well as other smaller kind of changes related to helping with actual the construction of housing, permanent housing. So this really does address the significant issues that we have related to shelter care, at least zoning related. There are other proclamations and things within this that will allow for us to potentially address more policy related things, as well as funding and partnerships and things of that sort. So that's the plan moving forward. We will be bringing this, as I said, to mayor and council on December 16th, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions from the commission? Go ahead, Alan.
So thank you for your presentation, Dan. I'm really interested in it. I appreciate your work. You mentioned just at the end, without describing it, about policy changes, and I didn't know what that meant, and maybe you could try to define that for me. And one of my interests for a long time has been elimination of parking minimums, and I'm wondering if that's something that's on the radar somewhere.
Yeah, no, thank you. So I think policy changes is more looking at things like procurement processes that make it very challenging to move quickly and be nimble as a municipality. However, parking is definitely one of those issues that we will be listing within the resolution for shelter care. So you would be allowed to reduce or remove parking regulations within this. That's been one of the barriers that we've seen related to shelter care. And then that would be one of those things that we would address as we look at more permanent changes within the Unified Development Code.
So that would include more than just the shelter care areas.
We would probably, honestly, what we're probably going to end up doing is it's not just shelter care. It's looking at shelter care and all of the residential care services as well, because there's a lot of definitions and things that we have in there that are, again, they were defined in the 60s and 70s. They really don't reflect the current situation.
Jay, there's a hand up from Ray Winch and from Ben Bueller Garcia in attendance.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, thanks so much for your work on this, Dan. The question I had was around single room occupancy and if that is part of the plan as well.
Yeah, so SROs from what I know of are really considered multifamily, in a sense, with this. And so things like the Wildcat Inn, things that we've seen. Part of the issue that we've seen is that they're very challenging to utilize because of lot coverage on existing lots. And so that is one of the items that we are going to be looking at, and we're hoping that that helps with those situations. And then again, just looking at that as we do the more permanent changes as well, we understand that there's this continuum of care that has to happen, and that is things that we'll be looking at under the emergency.
And Ben Bueller Garcia, Jay.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Hey, Dan, sorry if I missed this. Jim Toffel had me distracted checking the men's basketball record. But to clarify, this is just for shelter care, affordable housing, or market rate as well?
No, so Ben, this is just for shelter care use. And so related to kind of permanent housing, again, we kind of felt that a lot of the zoning reform that we've been doing related to CCT, related to middle housing, that we're going to continue to do with our pro housing grant, is really addressing a lot of the permanent housing, and we just haven't been able to address the significant barriers that are within shelter care. We did mapping of really available sites, city-owned sites and private sites, and once you add in, the part of the problem is in the city of Tucson, commercial properties are basically aligned with residential almost everywhere. And so once you put in a 500-foot setback from residential, almost every site is not qualified. And so we did analysis. There were 6 total sites that were the right size and were 500 feet from residential, privately owned vacant sites. And so just understanding that there's just really, it was basically making it so there were no places to put this. And so understanding that's the reason why we're addressing the shelter care issues right now. And for that, but we're going to continue to do permanent housing zoning reform as we're doing with middle housing in a couple of weeks, and then we'll continue to do so.
Great, thank you.
Jim, did you have a question as well?
Well, no, I mean, Ben kind of asked the same thing I was thinking about, but it's interesting. I'm actually going through a rezoning on a property right now. We're working with Carrie Sylvan on it, and I was hoping I could do multifamily, and she said, well, we need to make sure that the rezoning conforms with all of the regional plans. So in the area where I have it, there's a north side area plan and a Catalina Foothills sub-regional plan. And those plans a lot of times dictate building heights and density and things like that. So I guess the question I had is, I mean, are we going to, as part of what you're talking about, analyzing the existing kind of sub-regional plans in terms of what they allow, or is that completely separate?
It really wasn't intended to be a part of this, but that's really great feedback to understand kind of how that can potentially affect a middle housing development or a multifamily housing development in certain areas. Actually, I think I know which project you're talking about. But Jim, maybe we can kind of follow up and see how that does actually affect it, because that's going to have to be a conversation as we move forward if it's significantly restricting our ability to build the housing we need.
Yeah, I'll forward you the email from Carrie. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you need to change it for me, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's helpful.
Right.
Would legalized parking for people who are living in vehicles be included as shelter? Would that be included in another area?
I think that's included in another area, but that's another thing that we will be looking at. I know that there's been quite a bit of interest from the council in looking at especially faith-based institutions and allowing for potentially parking and parking lots and things of that sort where there are services really close by. So I think what the emergency declaration does, while we're initially going to be looking at the zoning reform and just kind of loosening that up to allow for more sites to be utilized, that is something that we do plan on looking at.
Thank you.
I have a question or two as well. So I guess I'm just wondering if y'all know how much shelter capacity is needed, and then, based on the potential reforms, how many sites will then, essentially become available or potential sites for emergency shelters? And, do y'all have sites in mind, or is there kind of like a next phase after the possible emergency declaration?
Yeah, so Jay, we've done quite a bit of analysis of those sites, and what you see is when you shrink it down to like 250 feet from residential, it starts to really open things up. And so it's 250 feet from residential, and then it's also reducing that minimum lot size from 1.5 acres, which a 1.5 acre vacant lot, there just aren't that many of them. And when you reduce that down to like 20,000, you really start to open up really hundreds of lots. And while they're privately owned, it's just more options of where these can be located. We do still have the waiver program that the city can potentially do on city-owned sites, but we did an analysis of that, and there's maybe one, maybe two city-owned, still remaining city-owned sites that could work for this. Considering access, considering size, et cetera. And so I think a lot of it is going to, part of the reason it's hard, you don't want to create like new zoning code regulations with the emergency. So we're trying to do it on a case by case basis, because it's really hard to predict exactly what those barriers are going to be. So I'm not sure the exact number, but it definitely will help to open up more sites. And then you had one other question. I'm trying to remember what it was.
Was it like how much capacity is needed?
Oh, capacity is needed. Yeah. Lena, I wonder if you or Jason might be able to speak to that. We do have that. I just would have to find it.
I'm happy to. So there, over the last few years, there have been a few different sort of analyses of that. The most recent being the county's housing survey or housing assessment. And so that found that there is an added shelter bed capacity need of about 1,300 beds.
And then
Great,
just to follow up to that, I was just going to ask, like, how much, okay, so more sites are opened up, 1,300 beds are needed. What's the possibility of like actually getting more of those beds online? I mean, obviously that's quite a ways down the road, but is there any idea about how that capacity would get built or brought online or whatever is needed to do that?
So I think what it's going to be is going to be us working with our partners and continuing to do so. So we had a meeting earlier a couple of days ago with Primavera. There's interest in potentially, having other sites and helping with other sites. So it would be us working with our partners, and then us, potentially taking on some of that. So I'm not entirely sure what their capacity is, but hopefully over time, just having the ability to do so will help with this. And then again, I do think it also will allow for us to learn from it, so we can create those zoning code regulations that really do make sense. It's obviously a very sensitive kind of subject, and it's very challenging a lot of times to make zoning code changes related to this. So I think having that data and having those examples is going to be really helpful as we make those permanent changes.
Thanks, Dan. Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I think we are good with that item if there are no other questions or comments. Anything else from you, Dan, or you good?
No, I think that's it. Just we encourage you to come and watch or join on the 16th, and we'll kind of go from there. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Actually, Dan,
one more question if I
oh yeah,
can.
Yeah.
I've got one too. Go ahead, Alan.
What do you expect there to be significant opposition to this or not? Or what is your expectation about how people are going to react to the proposals?
It's really hard to say. I think the fact that we're still in keeping the zoning examiner special exception process and there will be notification, and it's a kind of a case by case basis. I think that's kind of a balanced approach. So I'm hoping that it is seen that way, but I'm not entirely sure. I guess we'll find out.
I was also going to ask you, Dan, is there any way that our commission can help support or be involved in this going forward?
Yes, of course. Well, first of all, I mean, we'll make sure that we're reporting back to you and kind of letting you know how things are going. I think any feedback related to just kind of any proposal, but also if, either trying to think, letters of support, things of that sort to mayor and council are also helpful.
Great, thanks.
I do have one question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Logan.
One of my questions would be, I think with a lot of the market rate housing policies that we are looking at passing, one of the risks is that if we open something up, that we can't remove it in the future because of state legislation. So with this, if we were to, I'm a large supporter of making housing as flexible as possible to open up as many opportunities. If we were to make it as flexible as possible, are we allowed to rescind some of that if we're seeing bad outcomes?
Yeah, so Logan, that's part of the reason why we're doing it the way we are, to where it's kind of on a case by case basis versus going in and actually saying you can now have, a 200, you can be within 200 feet of residential, or we're removing the residential setback. Because so what we've seen is, and part of the what we've seen in Portland is that they made a lot of kind of changes under their emergency declaration, but you need to make sure that it aligns with what is actually feasible in a permanent change. And so what we're really looking at here is making it so it's case by case, so you don't have the issues related to Prop 207 and rescinding something, and then being able to go through, learn from that, and hopefully make the code changes that are appropriate for the community.
Great. Yeah, then I would support it being as flexible as possible. If we get to address it, then as flexible as possible seems like the best option.
Cool.
So my question is, as a commission, I would think we want to consider doing a resolution or whatever we would call it, a memorandum, something to support this. But I'm not really sure. I know what you just said in your presentation, Dan. Is there something in writing we can look at, some proposal, something that we could say we want this to be approved?
Yeah, so I can do two things. One is I can share the materials and the video from our study session that we had with mayor and council back in October. I can also, the materials will be posted on Tuesday next week. I know the city attorney office is still finalizing that. And I can make sure that as soon as those are posted, I'll share those with Neto and make sure that the whole group gets a copy of those.
So that works. And then Jay, would we be able to, before there's a next meeting, do some kind of vote on whether we approve it or not and want to recommend it?
Sure. Any other questions or comments? Sorry, Dan, I thought we were done, but we weren't quite done. I think now.
No worries.
I think now we are.
All right, great. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Alan, I think if there was a motion that you wanted to make in terms of supporting, producing some sort of memo or whatever, that, we could entertain that, certainly.
I was thinking of doing that, but then I'm not sure what it is I'm supporting. Just what Dan said, okay, but it's, what he just said. We don't have any document or anything to look at, so that's why I hesitated. If you think there's enough for us to do that, I mean, I'm in favor of what's been talked about today. I guess I'm putting it differently. If we're 1,300 beds short and need that, the city should be doing something about it. And what's being talked about is something that people should consider. I don't know, alternatives or what's good or better.
I think we could probably just write a letter saying that for the emergency orders that we support as much flexibility and as much opportunity to build as much housing and beds as possible in the city. And we support the direction of planning and development.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. What other folks think?
That sounds accurate to me too.
Sounds good to me.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Like it.
Yeah, without seeing something in writing, I'd want it to be really pretty general. I really prefer to have something in writing to know exactly what we're recommending and supporting.
I guess when is the I'm sure you said, but when is the meeting where the city's going to approve or disapprove of this? We have time, or what time do we have?
I think there's a study session on the 16th is what I remember. I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah, there's a study session on the 16th. And then, like I said, the materials will be posted on Tuesday next week. So I'll make sure that you do all get a copy of those once they're posted.
So probably what this means is next Tuesday, after we've seen the documents, we write a letter in support. And then we have our tangible document to back.
It seems like we have time to do that. It's not a lot of time, but we do have time.
Yeah, and I think we probably have a decent framework for at least a draft letter, and then once the materials come out, we could, amend whatever, that we've come up with to match the materials that have come out or something like that. Would anyone like to make a motion or go ahead, Mindy?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a draft after whatever you guys said. I'll be more succinct. A draft letter of support for the emergency housing be presented and agreed on by this council via email.
Yeah, I imagine we would need to work on it and then circulate it via email if that's within the bounds of what we can do. But that sounds like a good motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second.
What question I have before we vote on it? Is it just the members of the commission that are present today have voting on this, or would it be the entire commission, or what?
It would be the entire commission, right?
I think that's correct, but they haven't seen Dan's presentation, so I don't know how I guess you're recording it, maybe we could send that to them also.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the meetings are all posted online, so go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah, I'm sorry, just before we vote, can you repeat the motion? I just need to hear it again.
I think the motion is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mindy, that we are, as a commission, going to create a letter of support for the emergency housing declaration. And we will wait until the materials come out before we finalize the letter. And we will have it to, was it to the study session by the 16th? Did I get that correct?
And that after reviewing the draft, or after reviewing, we will draft a letter, send it out to the rest of the commission to review the letter. Vicki, you asked for seeing something in writing, so we will draft a letter of support for the emergency housing, and it will circulate amongst the commission to approve it or not approve it.
Then I don't understand what this motion is about if we're not voting until after we see the letter.
The motion is to write a letter of support.
And when will we approve it?
Within 5 days of receiving it.
And we'll do that by email? Doesn't it have to be in a public meeting?
Could we get some staff clarification about the rules that we need to follow in order to draft a letter and get it around to folks for approval and voting?
Jason, are you still here?
I am, yes. So unless either Lena or Neto know this specifically, I don't feel that I'm familiar enough with commission rules to answer on the spot, but I'm happy to look that up and get an email out to the group.
Yeah, neither am I. And unless Lena knows the answer, we'll have to get back to you.
So we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
So Jay, we'll
yeah.
get you an email tomorrow letting you know.
Okay. So should we hold off on voting on this motion, or I'm a little bit confused now as to whether or not we need to do anything today, or if we're just going to wait until tomorrow regarding the rules. I can draft or work on drafting a letter and then send it out to folks and vote on it at some point via email. I'm still a little bit confused about what we need to do today, if anything. Go ahead, Vicky.
Yeah, I mean, if we vote, I would abstain. I'm not comfortable with this. I'm fairly sure that voting needs to take place at a public meeting. But that's just me. So if we vote, I plan to abstain.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we can go ahead. I don't know that we need a motion to write a recommendation letter, just like this recommendation letter that we're going to be talking about here, the memorandum to mayor and council. I think we can write it and then at the next meeting go through and approve it as a group once we have a draft.
Okay.
So I don't know that we need a motion to draft something and put it to this group to approve later.
If we wait until the next meeting, is that going to still be effective in terms of the timing of the letter?
Your next meeting, I believe, is the 15th of January.
And the study session is the 16th of December.
Yeah.
Oh.
So are we allowed to just approve the letter? Are we allowed to make a motion in an email to approve the letter after Tuesday when we have the materials to review?
I think that's the part that
Yeah.
Well, the recommendations that we're going to be giving regarding the so there's a letter that was drafted. There's a lot of stuff in this letter that's basically in line with the presentation that Dan just gave. When we talk about number 5, increasing supply of affordable housing. So we kind of addressed some of this stuff already with this other recommendation letter. Maybe that's just the way we do it, is use this existing recommendation letter that we're going to be talking about today. And maybe there's just one change we make to this letter that, in reference to the meeting on the 16th. And that would suffice.
That makes sense. Go ahead, Mindy.
I wanted to rescind my motion.
All right. I mean, the other thing maybe we could do is we could just vote to support the emergency housing declaration, and as Jim said, maybe make a simple modification to the letter that we have been working on and will review again today. But I also don't know if is it going to is this something where if we weigh in, it's going to really sway things, because it seems like it's kind of moving forward anyway. So again, I'm just kind of questioning what we actually need to do. But at the very least, we will talk about it, amending the letter that we've been working on this year. So is there anything else that we want to do at this point before we move on? Because it sounds like maybe we are going to hold off on a motion to do anything in particular. So unless somebody's got another idea, I think maybe we can move on to the next agenda item. Am I reading that correctly, folks?
I just have a comment or maybe a question somebody else can answer. I don't know what our recommendation does. I think it's a valid point you just raised, Jay. It seems like the more ammunition the city has when people are opposing it, the better. But whether our recommendation is going to change the day for anybody, I agree with your question. The implication of your question is that it won't. but it's still something that's better than not. It's another arrow in the quiver, if you will.
Yeah, I also don't know, it doesn't sound like the mayor and council are gonna vote on this. It's just a study session on the 16th, so there will likely be more action at a later date as well, I would imagine. Go ahead, John.
So I do think that I've written a number of letters to mayor and council about different housing related topics. And I believe that for the most part, those get read and they are recognized. So, we could, as individuals, write a support letter, and that would, if each of us did that, that might weigh in more than the commission itself doing it. But I think, if there's, I guess, Dan, if there's suggested language that you'd like us to have in the letter, if you could maybe have um, not Michael, but Neto send something out to us. I'm happy to write a letter in support for this as a, personally.
I think, yeah, like I said, I'll share both the materials that we had from the previous meeting, and then as soon as we get everything finalized, I know city attorney's office is still working on it, but we'll make sure you get all of that information, and that'll hopefully help in the drafting of those letters.
Thanks, Dan. Okay, it sounds like we're at a good spot to move on from this. Is there any other comments, thoughts before we move on? Okay, next on the agenda is the Pima County Regional Housing Strategy and Funding Plan presentation and discussion.
Hi.
Yeah,
Thank you, Commissioner Young, Chair Young. I am going to give a presentation, and I think my colleague Nicole Fife from the County Administrator's Office is going to run the slides, and then partway through, she's going to take over the presentation. And as you might remember, last meeting, we presented just about our funding plan, our draft funding plan. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual recommended strategies that are coming out of our Echo Northwest housing study that will be presented to our commission in January. So the actual report, draft report, will be ready to go at that time, and we'll be able to get that finalized hopefully after our commission meeting in January. But for now, I just want to kind of go over the draft roles and strategies with you. Next slide. And here is our timeline. As you can see, we've already got that housing needs. We knocked that out right at the beginning. Our target market analysis, our engagement, which we just had in October, and then our final strategy, which I just mentioned. And that is the last thing that is in progress for our timeline. Thank you. Next. And I talked a little bit about this at your last meeting. We talked about how we had done some pretty robust engagement with the entire region, looking at going to places that were already having events and where people were already going. So we did obviously the city of Tucson. We did Tucson Meet Yourself, Ajo, Marana, Green Valley, Rincon Valley, Sahuarita. I thought their engagement activity was really cute. So instead of having sticky notes and dots, they did little houses, and they pre-made some of these little slips of paper that were supposed to be like bricks or shingles. And then there were also blank ones you could write on. Next slide. And here is what our community told us, what were their priorities related to housing stability. Probably none of these will be surprising, but I thought it was interesting. Down payment or rent and utility assistance, preserving our existing affordable housing stock, eviction, foreclosure, prevention and legal services, housing near services and amenities, creating a range of diverse and affordable housing options, providing homelessness resources, and making homes safe and comfortable through upgrades. So these were the ones that we had, the pre-printed slips that people could decide, here's my priorities. Next slide. And then this is what we got back from our folks, some nice qualitative data that you can see what the priorities were. So we had the affordability relative to income,
always interesting to me because we have an area median income that doesn't really keep up with our housing market prices. We've got the down payment assistance, the preservation, housing near important services and amenities, and the eviction and foreclosure support. And then you have your other priorities were job training and proximity to employment, labor to deliver on housing needs and home repair, especially in rural areas, snowbirds and long-term snowbirds occupying long-term rentals and investor activity, childcare access, legislative advocacy, and increasing supply, low barriers to development. And I think, I'm going to go ahead and let Nicole take over, I think, from here, if that's okay, Nicole, because we're just talking about the county's roles in this whole big picture.
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you, members of the commission. So in this report, we're really trying to call out what the county's roles are with respect to housing in comparison to the city of Tucson and the other cities and towns. So when the report's available, or before the report's available, the cities and towns will be weighing in on the strategies so that we can list them if they see themselves in a certain strategy. So some areas will overlap and some areas we won't. So the 5 for the county, and we'll go into these in more detail: strategic policy setting, coordination and advocacy, development services, land and infrastructure. That second one is really our unincorporated area where our development services really apply. Housing stability and eviction prevention, where we are a prime provider of eviction prevention, legal services, and rent and utility assistance. We're the regional workforce development provider, and newly, I would say, we're a regional funder. Ooh, and I can't switch. Oh, there we go. We're also wanting to state clearly what our roles are not after speaking with our commission and cities and towns and our administration. So we do not develop housing ourselves. Obviously, the city has a development arm, but we do not, and we don't intend to. We don't own, operate, or fund public housing or PSH. Asterisks, we know the city there may be some issues with PSH funding in the short term that we may assist with. We don't administer rental vouchers. We get a share of them, but then the city administers them for us. And we don't own or operate shelters. Caveat there, some of you are familiar with the Craycraft shelter. Although we use the word shelter there, my understanding is from staff, it's more of a bridge housing facility, and families are moving out of that facility pretty fast. So shelter is not really a role of the counties. Goals: 1, expand supply, diversity, and affordability of housing across the region. So this is our 64,000 units. So over 10 years, we know that there's a demand for 64,000 housing units, irrespective of income across the county, with more than half of those in the city of Tucson. Expand the supply of housing affordable to low-income households. So almost half of those need to be affordable to those with incomes 80% AMI and below. Number 3, your chair brought this up last time, continuing to make efforts to invest in affordable housing in areas that are sort of higher income, lower poverty areas and community revitalization areas. Number 4, promoting housing stability and preventing displacement. And number 5, bridging those experiencing homelessness to housing and freeing up shelter space. So we're going to have a series of strategies in the report, and this is where I was talking about we'll be referencing other jurisdictions' roles. For example, number 1 over here, regional messaging and education. We understand the city is about to embark on a education campaign with regard to housing, so hope to partner and amplify that message. Stronger regional coordination. This really has to do with PAG. So Pima Association of Governments has typically not taken a role in housing data, but Maricopa Association of Governments has, and we're hoping under the new leadership of PAG that may be a role that PAG is willing to take on. And I won't go into all of these, but building. So this is really, again, market rate and low-income housing. So workforce development to grow the trades that we need to build all these homes over the next 10 years, continuing to modernize land use and zoning codes, expanding home ownership options, and reducing development costs by updating our infrastructure requirements, impact fee subsidies, and things like that. The second is particular to low-income households, and this has to do with where we're proposing to put a significant amount of our funding, which is to expand financing for the development of affordable rental housing. Again, we won't be doing the development ourselves, but we put out RFPs once a year, and the city responds to those too, and strengthening pathways to affordable home ownership. Those projects are both rental projects, and like Habitat for Humanity usually responds to our RFPs and other builders that are building what will be home ownership projects. And this has to do with the geographic balance. The city in your city HAST plan has identified community revitalization areas that make those areas more competitive for LIHTC housing developments. We don't have those adopted, and we need to do so. So through this process, we're going to be proposing 10 or 11 areas around the county, including South Tucson and including one in the city of Tucson near the jail as community revitalization areas that will incentivize and make more competitive housing development in those areas, as well as non-housing development and reinvestment. Prevent displacement and promote housing stability. So this is really our eviction legal services program, our rent and utility assistance, home repairs and weatherization, and rapid rehousing. Actually, rapid rehousing is in this particular one. So with regard to freeing up shelter space and listening to Dan's presentation and your discussion right now, so we view our role when it comes to the shelter is freeing up space in existing shelters or potential future shelters that are built by adding more funding to rapid rehousing so we can more quickly move people out of those shelters, freeing up space. And as Sophia said, the next step here is to move the full draft forward to the commission. It'll actually be in January now, and then to the Board of Supervisors in February. And I know I went through that really fast, but you have other things on your agenda, so I'll stop there and take questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia and Nicole. Questions, comments from the commission? Go ahead, Jim.
So I think it's great you guys are looking at community revitalization plans. I think Pima County and the city of South Tucson has the same problem. I mean, I don't know that there's been any LIHTC awards in Pima County outside of the city limits in the last 15 years. And so by putting that in, that's going to position you guys, because they treat all of Pima County, and you guys might want to give ADOH some feedback there, but they treat all of Pima County like it's urban. And as you know, a lot of Pima County is rural, a lot of it. And those locations really struggle to get enough points and to do the things they need to do to get an affordable housing project. So I think that's a wise move on your guys' side.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Jim. It's funny. I think we haven't dug into this space as much as we have been in the past 4 years. So I think we're excited. I mean, some of these rural areas we've already made investments, or we definitely plan to make investments. So thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Any other questions or comments? Ray?
Could we see the slide again of point number 3? I know that might take you a minute. Someone else has a question.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. Point number 3. Is this it, Ray?
Yeah. What do you mean by leveraging public land for equity?
Sure. So, and I just want to be careful here too, because I've had a role for a long time in Pima County with expanding our parks and natural, conservation areas and things like that. So we're not talking about that kind of public land. We're talking about surplus public land. So we had a long discussion with our commission and staff between the county has surplus land, the city has surplus land, school districts too. So really what we're talking about is every 3 to 5 years requiring the county's real property department to do an inventory of our own surplus land, as well as any other public agencies that would like to participate with us, so that we can then once a year narrow down a list to take to our commission to make that land available through like an RFP process for housing development. And it also includes land. When I say surplus, we have large properties that we have identified for economic development projects that may be like 200 acres, but a portion of that property may be suitable for this. So that's what we're thinking about here.
Okay, thank you. Does that include abandoned land as well, or tax lien properties?
So my understanding, and we can have a deeper conversation about this offline, but from our real property director, is when we end up acquiring tax lien properties, it can only be for transportation purposes and I think flood control. Sophia may know better. So we haven't been able to make use of those for affordable housing. I think that's the constraint. But Sophia, do you know any more?
That's what I know. I know the same thing. Yeah.
But Ray, we're happy to talk with you offline about that.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, I think we are good on this topic. Thank you again, Sophia and Nicole. Appreciate the presentation.
Thanks.
All right, next up on the agenda are city and county updates. First up is HCD.
And we'll have Jason Thorpe presenting our updates.
Apologies, it just took me a moment to get back on camera and off mute. So thank you, Commission, for the opportunity to share some updates from the department, and was unable to be here today, so asked me to share. A few noteworthy items that you'll see in the agenda. First, we're doing community engagement on several development projects at this time. Those include the South 10th Avenue development, as well as our Main and Davis development, which includes 2 separate sites, and the Stone and Speedway development that is part of our Choice Neighborhoods implementation grant. So that community engagement is underway, and some very underway, some beginning. So there is that piece. Additionally, the volunteer registration is open for the point in time count. So for folks who are unaware, the point in time count is conducted annually and is a survey of people who are experiencing homelessness in the community. So on one night, overnight, all people who are enrolled in a shelter program are counted. And at the same time, early in the morning, the next morning before shelters release, 300 to 400 community volunteers go out and take sectors of the city and volunteer to conduct surveys with unsheltered individuals and families. So that takes a huge community effort. If you've not volunteered, it's a really great opportunity to see sort of the impacts of homelessness really directly and talk to some folks and be part of kind of what is a key component of kind of community planning as it relates to homelessness. I believe you should have likely received already the registration, but I'll ask Neto to please share the invitation for volunteerism with the commission. And if you could share that with your networks, it's always a process to recruit. It happens in the on the last Wednesday of January. So actively recruiting volunteers and could use any hands that you know may be interested. Then a few things that are not on the agenda that I did want to share. One is that we've had some staff changes in our planning division. So want to both acknowledge both Rachel Hutchinson, who's supported the commission for a couple of years now. Rachel has moved on to a position in another department here at the city. At the same time, Manisha Butra, who has served as our strategic planning and community engagement coordinator, recently accepted a position of chief of staff in the Ward 5 Council office with Councilmember-elect Barajas. So you've heard Lena here today. Lena is currently our interim strategic planning and community engagement manager, and will be moving forward with recruitments for those positions in the near future. And then The last update item relates to requests for proposals we've recently released on the Home Investment Partnerships Program. And I'm going to hand it off to Andrew Paredes, who is our Community Development Administrator, to talk with you about that.
Thanks, Jason. Hello, commissioners. Just want to give an announcement and a plug for our City of Tucson, Pima County Home Consortium request for proposals, or RFP, for home gap funds. We released these RFPs on November 25th, so last week, and we have two. One is for affordable rental housing development, and the other is for affordable home ownership housing development, specifically for community housing development organizations, or CHODOs. Again, those RFPs were released. They're on our PCHIP website. We are hosting informational webinars tomorrow, December 5, 1 p.m. for rental and 2 p.m. for home ownership. And then applications are due to us on January 9th. What that means for you all as a commission is we will be having applicant presentations to you commissioners at the February commission meeting. We will be asking you once again to score based on a short presentation. We will be getting you in advance write-ups of the presentations, so you all will have time to read and get your thoughts about you and prepare for those presentations. Unfortunately, with the kind of the different LIHTC and mayor and council meeting turn times, we will be asking you to turn those scores around fairly quickly, within about a week to 10 days after that February meeting, so we can factor them into our overall scoring.
And
Thank you,
Jay,
Andrew. And then one final update from HCD that I'm very excited to share. Most of the commission, I think, knows Allison Miller, who had recently taken a position in Seattle, relocating with family. And so we have made an offer, which has been accepted. And later this month, Ben Olson will be joining us as the new planning administrator for the department. Ben comes to us from federal government employment, has significant experience with many of the areas in which we work, and we're very excited to welcome him to HCD. He will, like Allison, he will serve as sort of the primary liaison to the commission going forward. And so we look forward to you meeting him in January.
Thanks, Jason and Andrew. Jim, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just tried to sign up for the point in time count, and the TPCH's website link is down. So you might want to let them know that nobody can sign up. But I would encourage the other commissioners, if you've not tried the point in time count, or you don't have a lot of hands-on experience. I did it last year. It took about 4 to 5 hours, and it was it was very insightful for me personally. And I got a lot of value out of it. So I would just encourage you guys to give it a try. It's not dangerous. There's a lot of people, working together on it. So it's a safe event, and I just found it personally very rewarding. So for what that's worth.
And I'll just say I put the link to the registration in the chat. That's to the Pitt Tucson hub site where all the registration stuff is. Hopefully that link should work, but I'll let our TPCH folks know that the link on their page isn't working. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jim. I appreciate that. I'm going to definitely sign up and encourage others in my office to do the same.
Jason, I just had a quick question about the project on South 10th. You did mention that, but where is that in the process at this point?
I don't work on the development projects. I don't, so not the best speaker to that. I apologize that Anne and Johanna weren't able to be here. I don't know, Andrew, if you happen to have anything you can share. You're maybe a bit more closer to that work, but still a different team.
Sorry, I do. Trying to get the microphone on. That is in, kind of the diligence and pre-development stage, I would say, with the city's, nonprofit development arm. So certainly, an active parcel that the city, anticipates developing on.
Let me just add, this is Neto, that we have had community meetings in the Ochoa neighborhood. The most recent was about a month ago at Ochoa Elementary. And so we will continue having public meetings with the community as we move forward.
Thank you.
And then Jay, one follow-up item from an earlier piece. So we were able to do some quick consultation during the meeting and have confirmed that e-votes are not allowable with the commission.
Thank you so much. Any other questions or comments for, Mindy, go ahead.
Thank you. I always feel a sense of urgency. I'm going back to the draft letter topic that we were talking about before, or I can drop it, not attached. So we're not allowed to do e-votes. So is the impact, so they're having a study session on the 16th. And I think that they're probably going to be just looking at, I think a letter from the commission would be helpful in them considering. Okay, never mind. We already
Well,
went.
I was just gonna say, Mindy, why don't we bring it up again a little later in the meeting, because we do have a discussion about the recommendations to mayor and council regarding homelessness that we've been working on. So I know we had talked about maybe adding a little bit to that letter, but I think we could certainly revisit writing a separate letter if that's what folks want to do.
Got it.
Any other questions or comments for Jason and Andrew? Okay, next up is PDSD updates, but I did see in the chat that it looks like the presentation from Nicole kind of covered that, but Dan, I saw you back up on screen. Were you wanting to add anything?
I just I can give a couple updates. I think this is so update on the middle housing. So we recently had a planning commission public hearing. Planning commission voted 9-1 to recommend approval to mayor and council. In their recommendation, they had a couple items related to that. One was they recommended that we adopt it citywide. The second one was that we look at an option for matching the density to the lot size. It's essentially like a land division process for that, and then a review after 2 years. And so we held a study session a few days later with mayor and council. They gave us some kind of additional direction. And so that'll be back in front of mayor and council with a few options on the geography for them to vote on and a public hearing on December 16th. So that's moving forward prior to the date of January 1st, 2026, to where we have to have that completed. Plan Tucson was ratified by voters. So that passed. That has a lot of policies related to housing that I think are very applicable to this group as well. So we're really excited about that. It was a great community effort. The amount of input that's been kind of, and time from residents that went into that, I think it's really a great reflection of us and our values. And then the last one, I just want to go back to the housing and homelessness emergency action plan and declaration. Those materials from the last meeting are actually in your packet. I didn't realize that. So the communication and everything else in there is located in there. So if you did want to kind of look at some of the background information, it is there for you. So that's, I think, all I have for tonight.
Thanks, Dan. Any questions for Dan? Any comments? Okay, thanks, Dan. Moving on, let's see. So we did PDSD, Pima County, that was Dan there. So I think we're ready to move on to a brief discussion of our 2026 commission work plan. Again, just kind of wanted to keep this on our minds as we move into 2026 and wrap up the work that we've been doing around homelessness. Obviously, we have been working on a memo for a while and have taken folks' comments and incorporated those. So once we do that, we'll kind of be done with what, our main focus has been in 2025. So I just wanted to know, I guess maybe to frame this a little bit for discussion is, we could obviously pick another topic or, a couple of topics that we, really want to dig into that we think are important that, again, we could provide recommendations to mayor and council for. We could also kind of go back to what we were doing before 2025 and, just have kind of meetings that focus on housing broadly, presentations from, different city and county departments, other, actors throughout the community, and just kind of have discussions, provide, feedback that way. And obviously, I'm certainly open to other ideas, but that being said, do folks have any feelings or thoughts about how we should move forward as a commission in 2026? Any issues that are top of mind, any, things that the commission should focus on?
Jay, I think you probably know what I'm going to talk about. Um, and just to give a preview, we met as a subcommittee, and I'm drawing a blank on the name of that subcommittee. It was actually Lori and Jay and I were the ones who were able to attend, which was a quorum for that subcommittee, and agreed to have me make a presentation at the next meeting, not today, but next time, on on getting a recommendation to mayor and council to pursue a tenant's right to counsel for eviction cases, so that the city would fund a program so that everybody who is a defendant in an eviction case gets access to a lawyer. And when I make my presentation, I'll define for you all how important that is and how effective it is and the like. So that's just a bit of a preview. So when Jay said issues that are on my mind, that's on my mind.
Great, thanks, Alan. And obviously, we will be taking that up as you mentioned. And I did notice that on the agenda today there are no committee updates, and I think at least we might have been the only one that met. But obviously, Alan just summarized well what we talked about. So,
except I don't remember the
great.
name of the committee, but besides that.
Yes, Equitable Housing Strategies Subcommittee is our subcommittee.
Thank
So, any other ideas or thoughts about 2026? Go ahead, Ann.
I've been watching what's coming from HUD, which is really horrible and scary. And the projections are that homelessness is going to increase dramatically if this goes through. People are going to be displaced from supportive housing, from housing right now. So it seems to me that now is not the time to turn away from homelessness issue, because I think we're on the precipice of what could be a disaster. And there's also the issue of how cities and communities deal with regulations that are contrary to what we've done for years, contrary to evidence-based practices. So I feel like now is the time to really continue as a community to focus on these issues. The other thing, I don't know because I'm still new here with the commission, but there are some really interesting things being done in other cities around the country. And I would love to not just, we have some, obviously great experts and people in Tucson, but it would be really interesting with a Zoom meeting to bring in some people from other communities who've started to do some really innovative and creative things. And again, especially talking about with funding being cut from the feds, sort of what are communities doing
to keep the momentum going, even though they're losing significant dollars. So anyway, just some random thoughts of some of the things we could potentially look at in the new year.
Thanks for bringing that up. And I was just going to ask you, I have heard about some of the things that the current administration is proposing and changes at HUD. And is there any context or detail that you can provide about what are the things that HUD is talking about changing that would potentially increase homelessness? Do you know any details about that?
I mean, I know not specific details, but do know cutting off funds for permanent housing. They're really going to be focusing much more on forced treatment. So money going to treatment centers with, again, forced treatment, also camps where people are forced to go. So the funding that's coming for supportive housing, both to develop and build, but also to continue to support supportive housing, I've been told is being cut. And of course, the other thing is they're very much targeting blue cities and states. They've included all sorts of language, which is basically fealty to the administration. And if you say anything, they're going to be doing analysis of any media. Anybody that said anything that they think is negative about the administration will be cut off. That community will be cut off from funds. So it's both sort of the partisan stuff as well as moving away from housing first. They don't believe in housing first. There are lawsuits happening right now. A number of agencies are suing the federal government saying it's unconstitutional, but not sure. But I think that the main issue is cutting off funds for permanent housing and really focusing much more on treatment and shelters.
Thanks for the clarification. And Mindy, I think I saw your hand first. Go ahead.
I'm in alignment with Anne. I think the commission's focus needs to remain and stay on homelessness. Because especially considering some of the mandates coming down at the federal level. So that was my 2 cents for the next year.
Thanks, Mindy. Go ahead, Logan.
I would like to be part of a discussion about how to this coming year. Planning and development is doing code cleanup, and so it would be an opportunity to fold in some opportunities to improve the ability for people to build housing, things relating to parking requirements or land use. And so I think I would really enjoy if we could bring in things like developers or architects or groups that are involved in that and ask them what kinds of things would assist with making the code more flexible and able to manage building more units. So I think I would really like to give a recommendations of code items to address.
I can help with that.
I would love that.
I will say, I mean, I know I'm a little bit out of turn here, but my focus recently has been on trying to figure out ways to reduce regulation in terms of building housing. I feel like I think the industry as a whole is so overregulated. It really causes costs to go up. I mean, it's a huge problem. And it just keeps getting worse. I mean, no one ever wants to lessen building codes, reduce, requirements. It's always more and more and more. And it's just become so burdensome. And I think that's part of the reason that we're in the bind that we're in now. So I've been thinking about writing an op-ed to the Star and the Phoenix newspaper, which I'm blanking on it right now, talking about just from a tax perspective. When I build an apartment building, our typical fee is about 10 to 14,000 a door. The government taxes per unit are closer to 40 to 50,000 per door. So when you start looking at like all of the taxes, all the fees, all of the costs that are associated with building housing, um, some of it's being taxed to death. Our effective tax rate's like 90%. So I don't know if there's any other industry in this country that's taxed as heavily as the housing industry.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think also a lot of the code and land use things, I think figuring out where we have the power to offer recommendations and other things like looking at the costs of land use for parking. I photographed most of the affordable housing units in the city, and 50% of the land is being used for parking that's underutilized because it's low income individuals who often can't afford cars. So I don't know. I think drafting a set of recommendations relatively early in the year so that that could be folded into that would be really great. Both tax, zoning, code, whatever could be helpful to increase the speed and ability to develop from a
Jim, could
market
I ask you
rate.
a question about what you just said about the amount of tax per door? I think you said $40,000. How much of that is the city of Tucson, if you know?
Well, okay. I mean, I could go through it. I mean, it's tax at all levels, federal, state, county, and city. Just the sales tax. So if you compare Arizona to California from just a sales tax perspective, we're charging more than double the sales tax as California. Our average sales tax per unit is about 18,000 a door, just in sales tax. And so there's a state, which is what, 5.1%. County is 0.5. The city of Tucson is 2%. So they all get a piece of that, but there's property taxes, there's, the impact fees is a tax. There's, I've got a list of all the stuff I put together. I really do need to just get it on paper, and I'll be happy to share it with the commission when it's ready.
Go ahead, Logan.
I was going to say, well, yeah. So I think Jim, if you can start calculating those things, and then I have a relationship with like Corky Posters firm, and they do most of the El Pueblo housing development units. So I think if we have from a contractor perspective, from a architecture perspective, and then we could maybe get some of the other groups involved. We could have a strategy for reducing. The average cost per door is it around 250,000 or 350,000? I can't remember what it
Well,
um
total development cost, which includes land, soft costs, permits, fees, is I could look at last year's round. I did a study for the affordable stuff, but it's like 320 a door.
okay.
Construction makes up about 65 to 70% of those costs.
And like 30% is bureaucracy, and then like city and
No,
navigating.
well, I mean, there's architecture fees, there's real costs. I mean, there's land. You
Yeah.
got to purchase the land, you got to get the project designed. Those are real costs.
Yeah. Okay.
I see a few more hands, but I just wanted to jump in and note that, what Anne was talking about, homelessness, obviously we've been dealing with that for a year. And then, Jim, I think what you and Logan are talking about is essentially the major thing we dealt with prior to dealing with homelessness, which was affordable housing. So I'm just bringing that up because obviously they continue to be issues, but I just want to kind of put out there, like, what do we want to do differently? Like, if we continue to focus on homelessness, and I don't have the answer, not suggesting anyone does at the moment, but what else would we do if we focus on homelessness? What else would we do in terms of affordable housing? And then also just to note, maybe it's a good idea to have some of this go back to our various subcommittees that can deal with these issues and come back to the full commission. Just kind of thinking out loud, but in terms of how we move this forward. I think, Jason, you were next.
Sure. Thanks, Jay. I wanted to share first appreciation to Anne for bringing up some of the significant changes that are happening at the federal level as it relates to homelessness. And Jay, I know your question as it kind of relates to where's there, what specificity may exist in that. Our team has done a very significant analysis of the current continuum of care opportunity, which is the first sort of wholesale change we're seeing, and I think is an indicator of what we will see continuing to come from the administration. And so if it's helpful to the commission, the next meeting or a subsequent meeting, I think our team would be happy to provide some of that analysis to let folks both know what's happening. I think Anne provided a great high level introduction. I think if the commission would like it, we're able to bring that to a more local impact stage of saying this change as it relates to permanent housing means the likely displacement of 1,700 households in Tucson. That's a true data point. And so we have that analysis and it can absolutely present that if it's helpful to the commission.
I think that would be great, Jason. I think the sooner the better. So we'll certainly be in touch about getting that on the agenda. Thank you. Ray, I think you were next.
Thank you. And thanks for that last comment, Jason. I do agree. I think that'd be really helpful. And thanks for bringing that up, Anne. The places that I'd be interested in exploring more deeply next year is also housing without landlords, and looking at models of resident-owned properties, models of deeply expanding community land trusts. I think when we are able to take land off the speculative market, and take the profit motive out of it, when we look at the drive into houselessness, I think it is a way of having like long-term housing stability that can also be unsubsidized once it's in place. I think of that in the mobile home park context where a mobile home park that's owned by its residents are paying $120 a month and have a pool and have a community center, and in many of the mobile home parks where people are having the electricity cut out every week are paying $1,000, $1,500 a month, and the difference is largely in those profits. So yeah, would like to explore that more deeply, and also to look at places like I heard Santa Fe recently tied the minimum wage to the area median rent. Interested in what the impact of that is and what other ways the city of Tucson could leverage the power that we have as a city to ensure deeper affordability and to ensure a greater investment of more people in housing affordability. So I imagine a lot of the business owners who might be invested in not having the minimum wage skyrocket might have an investment in keeping housing prices lower.
Ray, while you're speaking, I know that you had a mobile home task force meeting. So I was wondering if you could just give us a quick update and maybe tie that into potentially how we could deal with the mobile home issue or issues in 2026.
Sure, and I'd be happy to give more detail in our next meeting too. Some of the things we talked about today, we had our meeting. We were doing like an end of the year recap and looking at some priorities for next year. One of which is we're in conversation with multiple council offices for putting on the agenda for January mayor and council meeting issues with how Tucson Water might be able to serve its mobile home park customers. Right now, there's if someone's a sub-metered customer, so the mobile home park is the one who's the customer, Tucson Water has no contract with that customer to require any kind of accountability. So even though that mobile home park might be reselling its water at a quite substantial profit, and in some parks having like significant water outages, lots of complaints from customers, there's no recourse through Tucson Water. And under current city code, they don't explicitly have that kind of oversight. So are exploring what some other municipalities have done was to say, if you're going to provide a master meter service to a mobile home park that's going to be reselling that utility, that you have to provide an audit every year. You have to tell us what you charge your residents, and additionally keep those records for 3 years so that any moment, if a resident does complain and say that they are being overcharged for the water, that they have to provide the gallons that they charge collectively of the residents to ensure that that is not over what is coming into the park. Uh, so we'll be pursuing that more deeply next year. We also met with the treasurer's office in the last few weeks and got a list of around 6,000 properties that are mobile homes that have back tax liens, and to look at where the areas of concentration are. Like in some mobile home parks, you're talking about 60% of the homes in that park have back taxes. So those are areas that are kind of hot spots for fraud. So the likelihood is that it's more likely that in a park like that, they have been sold homes that already have back taxes on them, which is illegal. But again, you see lots of illegal practices happening in the sale of mobile homes. So we'll be delving into tax issues more deeply in the new year as well. So a couple of the highlights. There was also a documentary that came out about mobile home park organizing in Tucson. I can drop that in the chat, but if that could go out to the group. Oh, it's already
in the
there.
chat. I put it in there.
Thanks. Like 119,000 views on that. I think it's been getting a lot of publicity, and a lot of people who live in mobile manufactured homes have been responding in the comments of how valid they felt like that was capturing their experience. And yeah, hoping to have people know that they're not alone in that. Thanks for the opportunity to share here.
Thanks, Ray. Ben. Go ahead, Ben.
That crazy unmute button. Yeah, I'm so glad this came up. I represent both the Southern Arizona Home Builders and the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, and we'd love to participate in this conversation. And I'd be happy to arrange for experts to come in and talk about this. Over, between single family and multifamily, 25 to 40% of the costs of building housing are nothing but government fees and regulations. Both the city and the county increased their impact fees this past year. The electric vehicle charging ordinance, I've heard the estimates that adds up to $500,000 to your average 250 unit, garden style apartment complex, and very few people are using that. So I'd be happy to facilitate conversation with experts to come in and talk about that. We did provide on the single family residential, we did respond to city staff and county staff saying, look, if you want to help us reduce costs on building houses, how about reducing the slope requirement from, 1% to 0.5%, like they do in Phoenix? That would save $2,000 to $4,000 per lot. And the pushback we got from the staff was pretty negative, and basically backed off. So we'd be happy to come up with some suggestions, and we'd really appreciate the support of this commission and moving that forward so we can reduce the costs on market rate housing. It's basic economics. The more inventory we can put into the market, the lower the cost for everyone. So thank you for considering my comments.
Thanks so much, Ben. I would certainly welcome some engagement and participation from the home builders development community, because just personally, I think government should generally be building more housing, but that's not the reality. And the reality is that the private market is what is producing housing. So having some input, I think, would be great. So Ben, maybe we can get in touch about getting some presentations scheduled for 2026. I appreciate that.
I'd be happy to do so.
Jim, I still see your hand up. You got something else?
No, I just wanted, I'll be quick, just to answer your question. You said previously we were focused on affordable housing. And I think, our answer has always been just to throw money at the problem. Let's just get more money, get more funding. And the reality is the money's not out there anymore. And so the only real thing we can do if we want to move the needle going forward is figure out how to build it for less. And so I think that's kind of from a I guess where I'm coming from is figuring out, like Ben said, how do we deregulate the industry and make it more affordable to build? So I've been spending a little bit of time on this. I've got a lot of thoughts and ideas.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jim. Any other thoughts about our agenda for 2026 before we move on down the agenda? Okay, great discussion, y'all. Again, just as a reminder, obviously, we have our subcommittees, so a lot of this stuff can go through subcommittees, but let's keep this conversation going so we can, get a better handle on what we want to work on 2026 for 2026. I definitely took some notes, and we'll work on this for the agenda for our next meeting. So I appreciate the discussion. And speaking of 2026, if you will note on your agenda, the schedule for 2026 is on there. And, obviously, one of the main ideas was to make sure that we were not going to be in conflict with any religious holidays or any other events and whatnot, that holidays, et cetera, that might interfere with our meeting schedule. I see a couple of hands up already. Mindy, go ahead.
Thank you. I looked at the schedule and there's a few conflicts that I saw. One is Passover, April 1st. Usually that holiday is a 2-night kind of thing. So if I travel to my sister's, that's the middle of dinner time. And then also, not that I observe Sukkot, but some people, the first night of Sukkot is a community event. And November 26th was for the mobile home task force. November 26th is Thanksgiving, and December 24th is Christmas Eve. That's all
Yeah, when we have those, I saw that we have those noted on the agenda. So certainly for those conflicts, we will either cancel or reschedule. So if there are any other conflicts that come up, just remember that we do have the schedule available, and let us or let me or staff know so that we can make changes accordingly. Go ahead, Jim.
Jay,
Oh yeah. Mhm.
just I feel a little uncomfortable about the commission changing their scheduled meetings around Jewish holidays, because I appreciate it, but there's only one of me that I know of, and I feel that accommodation around my faith is not necessary.
Noted. Thank you, Mindy.
Half Jewish.
I'm Jewish,
I need to
and
move. I need to move the affordable housing subcommittee. I've been having too many conflicts on that third Wednesday between a couple of other boards and groups I'm a part of. So Kenny, you're the only one here in the affordable housing. Does this third Tuesday work for you? So it'd be the day before we typically do.
I don't think I've been joining that subcommittee for some time now. I've been
Yeah.
meeting with the Equitable Housing Strategies.
Okay. Well, I guess my request is that we change that date to the third Tuesday of the month instead of the third Wednesday of the month.
Okay, I'll send out a note. Jim, this is Neto. Maggie's on your committee, and
Serena.
Serena. Mhm.
And Kenny's list is affordable housing. We do need another member.
Maybe add me to that email and I'll come to a meeting and see how it goes.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Logan.
That'd be great, Logan. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
third Tuesday of the month, Jim?
Yes, please.
I'll send out a note. Thank you.
And Neto, when we meet tomorrow to do our preliminary agenda planning,
Mhm.
let's revisit the subcommittees and who's on them. I know I put together a
Yeah,
spreadsheet with all of that, but let's make sure that everybody knows what they're what
assignments
subcommittees are on.
will do.
I'm not sure who was next, but I will go with Vicky.
Thanks, Jay. I just wanted to go back to the schedule for a minute. I would like to see us do a better job at being more inclusive in general. And instead of putting out a meeting schedule that falls on anybody's holidays that we have to talk about rescheduling, why can't we come up with a schedule that doesn't fall on holidays? I think it's important for people to not have to ask for exceptions. Again, it's a committee focused on equity. I would hope we could be a little bit more inclusive. And this comes up every year.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Vicky. And to your point, I mean, I think the purpose of going ahead and getting this out was so that we all kind of know what's coming and that these will be rescheduled. It wasn't to necessarily make folks have to request in advance, but we were trying to respond to the fact that, we didn't do a great job of that last year, but your point is well taken, and we will certainly try and do a better job going forward. Alan, I think maybe you're next.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Sort of the other side of what Vicky just said. It seems impossible to schedule around everybody's events. I don't know how you do that. Mindy's Jewish. I'm Jewish. I'm not observant. And so Passover is an important holiday. Sukkot, I'm not as familiar with. I don't think you could, really for me personally, I don't see there's any purpose to be served to make sure that all Jewish holidays are included in the schedule and worked around. Yom Kippur is the most important holiday, and so scheduling something on Yom Kippur is probably bad form. Famously, Sandy Koufax was going to pitch in the World Series in 1965. It was Yom Kippur, and he didn't. And that's how you deal with it. You just don't do it. You don't really require to reschedule the World Series. I guess that's my point.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that. Go ahead, Mindy.
Oh, thank you. And I am in agreement with Alan, sorry. But there's Ramadan and so many different holidays that fall on so many days of the week. So we can't, I don't feel that we can't work our schedule around what holidays that are going to follow. I'm repeating what Alan has just said. I hear, Lori, about inclusivity and that component, but I think it's more important for the commission to stay on a very regulated, time frame and not have to keep rescheduling. Everything is more important to me, and I'll just not show up.
Again, much appreciated. And I think, again, the point of getting this out in front of the commission was just so that we could have this discussion, get some feedback, and, do our best to plan, for the year. So appreciate the feedback. Go ahead, Kenny.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I know scheduling stuff. I know our subcommittee's been back and forth on the third Tuesday versus third Thursday. Just noting that, so it looks like for 2026, we're going to stick with the third Tuesday.
I don't know what it is about switching to Thursday, but it has been the most impossible thing in my entire schedule for the year. So that's an error, but we'll revisit it for the maybe 12th time. So appreciate the flag there. I didn't actually catch that. Mindy, do you still have a comment? Or is your hand just up? Okay. Any other comments or thoughts about the schedule? Certainly appreciate the feedback as we move forward with our work in 2026. If there's no more discussion, we can move on to the next agenda item, which is the discussion of our recommendations to mayor and council. I know we're don't have a ton of time, but I do appreciate everyone that provided comments and feedback and edits. I did my level best to incorporate them into the draft that was sent around yesterday. If there are any thoughts or comments, generally speaking, you can email them to me. Obviously, we can talk about them right now. And then, we talked about making an addition to the memo regarding the emergency declaration that was on the agenda earlier. So just want to open it up if there are any just comments in general, and then if there are any ideas about what we may or may not want to add regarding the emergency housing declaration.
I'll be happy to start. I think the letter's great. I think you did a really good job. I support everything that's in there. If we make a change, I would keep it really simple, is that we understand that the city has a homelessness emergency declaration. And, we support not any. I think the letter actually addresses a lot of the stuff that Dan talked about. So, but we suggest, we support, looking for creative solutions to address the homeless problem. Basically, just keep it really simple.
Thanks, Jim. Any other thoughts or comments? I mean, I'm willing to leave it at that. I appreciate the support, Jim, and we can certainly move on. But no, I'm teasing. Any other final comments? If not, I can certainly finalize the memo. I think there's the discussion as well about whether or not we want to meet with individual council members. I mean, obviously, this will go to mayor and council, and it's my intention to schedule a meeting with the mayor. It's been a while since the commission has done that, so obviously that's kind of my role. And I will be talking to Ann Chineka to talk about that. I know she did suggest the possibility of meeting with the ward offices, but it's also a lot. I mean, I don't know that I could do all the meetings, but it is certainly something that is on the table. So I don't know if what folks' thoughts are about meeting with each individual ward office to discuss the memo, or if just going to the mayor is sufficient. But I'd love to hear thoughts about that if there are any, and if there are any folks that would be willing to spearhead those meetings, particularly if we go to the different ward offices. Yeah.
I'm too shy, not good, or articulate enough. So I'm bowing out.
Kenny?
Yeah, just wanted a second. The draft letter looked really strong and just captured a lot of our different conversations. And yeah, I kind of like the idea of meeting with the different ward offices. We do have a few new members, and I think hearing a little bit of like housing policy fatigue too at the state level. So, maybe getting a sense of what conversations are happening on the ground in different wards could be useful.
Thanks, Kenny. Other thoughts? Go ahead, Ray.
What's your thought on timeline for this? I'd love to go to ward office meetings and also to add a few mobile home park related specific points.
I was honestly hoping to, that this meeting could kind of be the final input on the memo, just because we've been working on it for a while. But that doesn't mean that I feel like if we added much more substantive stuff, though, I mean, obviously mobile home stuff is important. I think it would set us back a little bit getting this to mayor and council. I don't know if that's a bad thing or not. And then, I mean, I think one of my biggest concerns about going to each individual ward office. I mean, I could just see this dragging on for several months just because it'll be very hard to schedule. And, you know, I, for me to, be a part of all of them would be a challenge as well. So while I think would probably be a great idea, I would certainly want to see some energy from the commissioners to, spearhead that, whether it's a few folks or what, but I do think I do worry a little bit about the timeline because I already feel like it's dragging a little bit. But again, that's just my feeling and it's not necessarily reality. So that's kind of my initial thought. But Kenny?
Yeah, thanks for that. Just to clarify, I generally think it's a good idea. I don't think it's needed for the memo in particular.
Got it.
Don't want to hold that up.
Thank you. I don't know, Ray, is that helpful or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that can be fine. And I like your suggestion there, Kenny, that it's be a good idea meeting with the ward office and not having to have it tied with the memo. Is that I understand what you're saying correctly?
I mean, the other thing, Ray, is, and goes to anybody, and I think this is kind of partly what I was hoping to get at with what we do in 2026. I mean, maybe the stuff doesn't go into the homelessness memo, but we can always put together another memo, either through subcommittees. If the mobile home task force put something together and brought it to the full commission, we can just do we can do as much of that as we like. So, I would be happy to entertain, more memos or other ways that we're, providing recommendations and advocacy to mayor and council. So, again, whether it's in this memo that we've been working on regarding homelessness or a separate memo, I think that, we have a lot of different options. So, how that plays out, I'm certainly open. We are getting down to our time limit here. So I guess I'm just a little bit curious maybe to see if we can wrap this up in terms of, do we want to add more to the memo, or do we want to, go ahead and move forward with the draft basically that was circulated, and kind of wrap that up and think about doing another memo? What are the commissions? What are y'all's thoughts about that? Jim?
I think it's going to, okay, after thinking about this some more, I think it's going to be difficult to get it approved today. So if we make changes, so I guess I'd like to just make a motion that we approve it as it stands. And I think the language in there supports what they're doing already. So I don't know that we need to say any more.
Okay, is that you? That's a formal motion there, Jim?
Yes, please.
Yep.
Second that motion.
I'd like to second. Oh, did you second that already, Alan?
I did.
I think Alan just beat you to it. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion before we vote? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? All right, the motion passes. Thanks, everybody. Let's see. Again, in the interest of time, we've only got a couple of minutes here. I think that's a good place to move on with that, from that, and just real quick, go over some next steps. You can see the subcommittee dates and times on there. As Kenny mentioned, equitable housing strategies should be Thursday, as that's what we wanted to change to. The next Pima County Housing Commission, Friday, December 19th. And then our next commission meeting is Thursday, January 15th from 4 to 6 p.m. And that will be virtual. We've got 2 minutes. Is there anything else that we need to discuss before we adjourn today? Go ahead, Mike.
Hi, all. We don't need to discuss this. I just want to discuss it because I stumbled across it here. So some of you know that I'm connected with Ward 3. We have a warming center weekdays from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., 1510 East Grant Road. I could tell you more, but again, we don't have the time. If you have an opportunity, go to, do a search, go to the Ward 3 website, if you will, webpage, look at the newsletter, the latest newsletter, and there's information in there. And I thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mike. I thought I saw another hand, but now I don't see it. If there is nothing else,
Who is
going
Mike?
once. Oh, go
Jeff,
ahead, Min. Yeah.
Our next meeting, could we put on the agenda possibly the Housing First subcommittee joining in with one of the other subcommittees?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
All right, y'all. It is 5:59. Thank you for a great meeting, and we are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.